Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, or you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Dave, and I'm going to have you pronounce your last name so I don't butcher it.
Gutkowski.
Gutkowski. Did I say it right?
Gutkowski with a K in there.
Oh, okay.
Gutkowski.
Gotcha. So,
Thank you.
Can you tell us where you are currently living?
I live in a small town called Bear Creek Township in the mountains just a little east of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania.
And is that where you're from originally?
I'm from originally about 5 or 6 miles, or pardon me, 10 miles away from here, small town of Ashley, Pennsylvania.
All right. So we're just going to dive right into your story. And I know you're into a lot of different things. And your website, part of it is about Reiki. So can you tell us about how you got started in that form of energy work?
Yeah, that's, boy, that came about so much by accident. I think I've always been drawn to this mystical side of life. I think that came from my dad. My dad was a very practical man. Like, he could do anything and everything. He remodeled apartment buildings. I think he had 7 of them. Could build anything. He was great with construction, etc. But he had this mystical side too that he would let leak out once in a while. So I guess that spread over to me. And I've always seen myself as a man of science, and everything had to be provable somehow. But there was always that little mystical side that I would see little things and wonder if they were real, or hear little things, somebody that had passed away, I'd hear them talking and wondering if it was my imagination, etc. Mm-hmm. But somewhere in the mid 1990s, I took a evening class in massage therapy. It was a 4-week class because I felt there was something in my hands. I actually liked to work if someone had a sore back, etc. I would work on them. And one of my friends at work said, you should really check into massage therapy. Took a course in massage. And at the same time, 2 other people had spoken to me about this thing called Reiki. So I did the massage class, and they were also running a Reiki class concurrently. So I signed up for that just for the heck of it. And that was in 1994, 95, I believe. And the first class I went to, when the instructor was talking about feeling things inside a person's body without touching them or just barely touching them, I actually was a little freaked out. I thought it couldn't be true. And I wondered why I'd even signed up for the class. And yet by the end of that first hour or 2 hours, whatever it was, she gave us what was called an attunement to tune into that energy and put our hands on each other. She had us work on each other side by side. And sure enough, I could feel something in the guy I was working with. And I thought, man, this is really weird. So I went back for the next class, and again, same kind of thing. And it just kept expanding and expanding. Took another 2 or 3 classes in it, the master level Reiki class, over the course of a couple of years. And man, I could feel things inside of people. I was even like accessing memories sometimes that I wouldn't have access to. And I'll say it really freaked me out. The scientific side of me was so opposed to this, and yet I was experiencing it. So I had to go with it. I actually bought books on psychology at the time, thinking I was going nuts. And just had to prove to myself that maybe this was real, or maybe it's not. I think the book I had was, Am I Becoming Enlightened, or Am I Losing My Mind?
Oh, what a great title.
Written by a psychologist. So after I got through that book, I thought, you know what, I just have to go with it, because real things are happening. I was actually having real effects with some people I was working with. And again, I was accessing memories that I wouldn't otherwise know inside those people. So I just went with it. And in 2000 or 2001, I redid my Reiki master level class, like just actually took it on as a for real thing. And man, it has changed my life in so many ways. I can't even tell you. Being open to those kind of energies that you can't see or can't measure, has completely changed my world.
Now, you don't do massage any longer, correct?
No, I actually do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I took a full on massage course in 2001, 2002, and got my massage certification, got a Pennsylvania state license. So I was able to, for me, massage was my foot in the door. At that time, Reiki wasn't generally accepted as a treatment. I think now it is. It's very almost mainstream. But back then, Reiki was this kind of out on the fringe thing. But if I had a massage license, I could actually work on people legitimately with massage and do the Reiki without making a big deal of it. But for me, Reiki was always the main thing, the energy work. To work on someone with massage is fantastic. I love it, absolutely love it. But I do believe it's that energy flow that makes my massage maybe 10 times better than it otherwise would. I actually have quite a following with massage clients.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you went lots of directions in your life. I know that you currently have a business, and that's the storage name.
Store All Center. Yep.
Okay. And that's probably not far. And I know that's part of your story. It's kind of, I'd almost say it seems like a sideline because you have, though it may not feel like it because it's a business, but it kind of supports other endeavors you do. So can you talk about the land and that whole story? Now, I do want to preface this by saying I did hear one of your talks. You were at an archaeological group in Louisville. We had met before at Imaginarium, but this is when I got to really hear the side of you and your discoveries. So can you go into the story about, I think it started with the land.
Yeah. Look, I could at least back up a little because the storage business actually played a role in that.
Okay.
Yeah, I had worked for the post office since 1979. And in the early 2000s, I knew that wouldn't go on forever. My mother had run the storage business. It was my dad's business. He started in 1989, but he passed away in 93. So my mother had always wanted me to take it over. So I purchased the business from her in 2002 and just sort of transitioned. I was transitioning from the post office into the storage thing. So I was making some connections with the local banks. I always, for me, everything's not cut and dry. I like to have communication, like build correspondence or build relationships. That's it. Build relationships with people I'm working with. So I had a great relationship with the bank that I was dealing with. And the land came up because I did a Reiki session for a young woman. I was doing it, not just particularly for this young woman. I was doing a weekend holistic expo, they're called. And I had my little booth, and this young woman was watching me from across the room. She was working with her mother in the booth. And I went over at some point and asked her if she'd like a session. She seemed super shy, but she said she would. We booked one for the next morning. She came over on a Sunday morning, got the Reiki session, Reiki/chair massage. And whatever happened in her, something clicked. She went back. Her mother was raving about it. I didn't really know them at the time. And young woman's name was Heather. Her mother's name was Rita, R-E-D-A. And Rita was raving, and she asked if I do this for a living. And I told her I have a storage business. This isn't my main thing. She asked where the storage business was. And when I told her, she said, "Oh, I work for a company that sells real estate for commercial development, and we're looking for someone to build a restaurant in an industrial park nearby." Now, my business side said, "Wow, that'd be fantastic. Like that sounds like a good idea. There might be income in that. There might be a way to make another business." So I went the following day on a Monday to her real estate office to check that out. And the two parcels they had were way over my head. There's no way I could have gotten into the restaurant building. But they did have, there was a long table full of papers. And I say this often because it's the way it happened. I'm speaking with someone across the table from me, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see a paper lifting up off the table. And every time I'd look at it, it was back down. Like every time my direct vision was on it, it was down. But in my peripheral vision, I could see it. So eventually I got to which one it was. I went over and picked it up, and I said, what's this? They said, "You wouldn't be interested in that. It's up in the mountains. You couldn't develop it." I said, "Well, it's talking to me." So they showed me on a map where this 100 acres of land was. It was a 100-acre parcel. And I knew generally where it was. It wasn't too far from where I grew up. So later that week, I think it was on a Thursday, I went out to take a look at it, took a hike, and I kind of fell in love with the land. But I'll have to say, at that time, I had just started my business, maybe the year before, the storage business, and the post office income wouldn't support buying that land. So I didn't have the money. But I went to the bank one day and asked if I could take a loan to buy this land. They told me they don't loan money for land. But the relationship I had built with the bank manager, somehow that managed to pull some strings for me. A week later, she called me into her office and said, "Here's your monthly payment on the land." I said, "Well, I thought you said we can't do that." She said, "Well, I made it happen. I can make it happen. Here it is. If you want to do it, go for it." So things were just falling into place magically. There was no good reason to pay at that time $708.40 every month for 20 years to buy this piece of land that had nothing on it. But I did it anyway, kind of went through with it, bought the land, and loved it. It's a great place to hike. It's great for picking blueberries, but I don't know that it was ever worth almost $800 a month until 3 years later, when I found out that these huge boulders up on the land, they're beautiful. It's a beautiful meadow with 4 large boulders. I found out that they were lined up with the equinox sunrise, equinox sunrise and winter solstice sunset, also spring solstice, or summer solstice sunrise. So all of a sudden, this piece of land I had bought for no good reason, there was a reason. And I could tear up because it moves me that somehow something in the universe spoke to me that day in that real estate office, and even the day before in that Reiki session. The mystical side of life is what has led to the biggest things for me. So that land has now become pretty much my primary passion. I've found so many things up there, and I've met so many people, yourself included, through Lee Pennington. I've given talks in, Virginia, New York State, New Hampshire, Michigan. I travel all over to give talks about this site that I found up on that mountain now. And it all came about from listening to some weird things in my head, in my heart. So
I just want to ask for a second. So the banker actually made it happen?
Yes, she did.
Like an investor?
She looked at some other assets I had. I had an apartment building. She said, we could mortgage that apartment building and say that you're borrowing the money for that purpose. And, we could take a loan, a second mortgage on the apartment building. So that's how it happened.
Oh, so she knew. Well, that was definitely another synchronicity for her to, well, first you had the relationship with her, but also that she must have been directed to help you in some way.
She was. And so weirdly enough, too, I had a dream. And I could say straight out that way back, this is 2002, they were only asking $95,000 for 100 acres of land, which is a great price, but it's totally undevelopable. Mm-hmm. And I had a dream the day before I went into the office, after the bank had approved the loan. I went to the real estate office, and I had a dream that told me I should offer them $64,000. So I took that with me, held that dream in my head, but yet when I got there, I chickened out. The agent, the broker, told me, she said, you don't have to pay full price. You can give us a lower offer if you'd like. And I thought, oh, should I go with that or not? But I chickened out, but I did offer 80, and they accepted it immediately. So everything was like synchronicity. Dreams are so important, as Carla shared with her in her talk.
That's amazing. So when I heard your talk, the research and how you knew to do these calculations and the site, can you go into that and just tell us more about how, your presentation had how you discovered the fact how the lighting was and how it lined up?
Yeah, sure. When I first found out about what the stones were, the big boulders, because I love them. They're beautiful. They're huge. To me, they almost look like animal shapes, and I think they probably are. But I would hang pictures of them in my post office. I actually won a local, a county-wide photography contest with a picture of one of the boulders. Had them hanging in my post office, and a Native American man that would come into the office once in a while, he spotted them, made sure to talk with me about it, said it was precious land to them. He was Mohawk. So we took a walk up there, checked them out. He said, turns out, yes, they were special to the natives in this area. But it wasn't until another friend came into my post office and showed me a book called New England's Ancient Mysteries. Never forget it. And I'm thumbing through this book. He knew I liked the big stones because I had the pictures on the wall. And on page 31 in that book was a picture of a cathead dolmen, they called it, in New York State. And it looks almost exactly like the big rock, the biggest rock in my collection on my mountain. So I thought, wow, that's bizarre. They look so similar, and they're both dolmens. They're resting on other boulders. So I wrote to the publisher of the book, and they put me in touch with NERA, the New England Antiquities Research Association. And through NERA, we exchanged photographs, etc. One of their researchers asked me if it aligned with the winter solstice sunset, and I really didn't have any idea. He gave me an idea of how to look. I didn't even know the boulders were in a straight line. They're in a perfectly straight line, 3 of them. And when I looked there, I could see that, yes, the sun was going to come close on winter solstice sunset. Unfortunately, there was a bad year. It was very cloudy. I didn't get out there until December 31st, New Year's Eve. And sure enough, the sun set right in line. There's a little curve on one stone and a point on the other. The sun set right into that marker on December 31st. Now, the archaeoastronomy part of the calculations, I've been an astronomer since the 1980s. Amateur astronomer, and I knew that the winter solstice sunsets change over time. There's a little shift in the Earth's axis. It's called the precession of the equinoxes. So the Earth's axis tilts and wobbles, and you could actually calculate that if the sun was setting in the right mark now, this current year, you could actually calculate back in time to see when it would have set there on December 21st. So I went through those calculations and found out the stones might have been built in 1825 BC. So they might be about 4,000 years old. So I was able to do those calculations. Now I always have been a little shaky on that. It's an open viewing site that could shift by a couple thousand years either way. But no matter what, this site was anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000 years old. And I just kept on researching. I did my alignments on the equinox, and believe me, we're still refining. I've been doing a whole lot of work in the last 2 years with tools I never even imagined having.
Amazing. So, talk a little bit about your connection to the land. I mean, that was something that was real important to me when I heard your story about the land. Not from a scientific, but how it drew you in. I can't describe, but I know part of your story is about that.
Yeah, just the fact that it drew me that very first day after that massage/Reiki session when this paper was lifting up off the table. I am still a scientist, man. I do research work. I document everything meticulously. But one thing I also document are those mysterious synchronicities that just seem to happen from out of nowhere. So this land called to me with something that lifts up, paper lifting up off a table. About a month before I actually made the purchase, I had a dream about walking further up the mountain. There were a series of ridges, and when I got near the top, near the last ridge, I walked down in a valley, and there was a little point on the ground, the earth kind of came to a point, and I should dig at the end of that point. There are other places where I've dreamt of things buried in the earth that, again, I haven't touched yet. But that the dream I had about the place I should dig near the top of the mountain, I hadn't even hiked there yet. And I went up with my youngest daughter one day. We took a hike, and sure enough, I had told her about the dream. And as we were hiking, it was exactly the way it appeared in the dream. And we got to that place near the top. There was a little point on the earth, and I was afraid to touch it, afraid to do anything with it that year. But 3 years later, I was up there, and a satellite image actually showed that there's a circle on the ground there. And the place I'm supposed to dig is right at the center of the circle that you can see in the vegetation. I pushed a walking stick down. I had a walking stick with me, pushed down on it. It went right through the ground down to about 24 inches total. When I peeled off the soil, there was about 6 inches of soil, and there's a round hole about 6 inches in diameter that goes down and then turns left. It's I don't know what's there yet, but something about this mountain is actually talking.
So the like a Google Earth pic or whatever it
Mhm.
was that you were talking about. So the vegetation is like in a circle around it, so I can get the visual.
Yeah, from a scientific point of view, I'd say there's like a little, like a dim, darker green area,
Mm-hmm.
made up of little, almost like dots. They'd be like a foot in diameter or so, like each little dot. And the circle's about 200 feet in diameter, 180 maybe, if I remember right. What I think that might be are post holes archaeologically, where someone had a palisade, a little fortress or something, and they stuck posts in the ground. And as those pillars rotted, they provide better fertilizer for the plants growing. So the plants are a little bit greener right where those posts were. Now that's my theory. I don't know that for sure yet, but it seems as though there might have been a construction there at that point.
All I can think of is like a rabbit hole. But even if you were to find a rabbit hole based on a dream, whatever it was you found based on a dream, it's pretty incredible. So,
Yeah, and I don't think it's a rabbit hole. It's got some structure to the sides. It's very round, and I don't know where it
hmm.
turns toward. I tried to stick tried to stick a camera down in there, a cable, and I was up there a little bit too late in the evening. It was starting to get dark, and I had the spookiest feeling that I shouldn't be there and I shouldn't be doing that at that time. I've got to wait for the right time. But something literally chased me out of there. There was a man, I could go into a ton of detail with you because I actually know who it was now, what was telling me to get out there. And many of these, like many of the feelings I get
hmm.
are very, very emotionally moving. I've I've felt other people's lifetimes, maybe not other people's, not a lot. I saw the death of a person up there. I felt the death of a person up there. I experienced being tied to a stake and burned.
Oh, I was going to
Yeah,
ask you if there were any connections to like, Native Americans that you
yeah.
might
This
have
was a
felt.
Native American that was captured by white settlers and taken to that spot and burned alive in front of his wife.
Oh my gosh.
I
So,
feel a little bit weird saying this to an audience that I've never met. Um, but believe me, I am a scientist. I haven't explored that area and when it comes to research, but I was there. I felt it, and it was the wife that asked me to leave, or got no, asked me, told me get whatever, get out of there.
maybe it wasn't safe.
No, but at some point there will be artifacts there. I feel a bronze armband in that area, at least that I'll find, and also a little clay jar that has a wolf on the outside of it, and it's got the heart of a Native American man in it who was a traitor to his own people, T.D. Guskowski. Yeah, I can say that because someday when those things are found, they'll say, "Yeah, we heard that on Bloom Where You're Planted podcast."
Yes. So then you started blogging some of your experiences. Now, writing is not new for you, correct? You've kind of been a writer for a long time, like maybe
And
not published, but you've been writing things.
I like to write things. Yeah, I enjoy writing just letters, correspondence. I've always been told that I'm good with that, with correspondence, especially business type things. But Carla, my partner here, my editor partner, is begging me to write. She read one of my blog posts last night, reread one that she hadn't read in a couple of years, and she was in tears. She said, "You have to write a book. You have to write." So I'll take it from her.
Well, with the link of the blog that I looked at, sounds like a chapter, so well, I always um, ask people a couple of questions on our podcast. And one of them is, what does bloom where you're planted, that quote, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, bloom where you're planted. Um, yeah, to
It's
me that
different for it's different for everyone. So there's not
there's no
like
right answer, huh?
there's no right answer.
No, bloom where you're planted. To me, that means to realize that each and every one of us already has everything we need, the skills, the abilities, the resources to blossom and become everything the universe has personally asked us to be, like in this place, in this very moment, because it's happened for me. And if we are not, if where we are now is not where we wish to be, we can still blossom and then spread the seeds for another garden or another iteration of ourselves and of the community in which we live, so we can continue to grow into the person we dream of becoming, the person that we're meant to be. And I think we also have to realize the power that's in the choices we have in every moment. With every choice we make, we become the author of our own lives. It's a choice and it's a responsibility. And it's important to realize that when we give our power of choice away, that we're allowing someone else to tend our garden for us. The sooner we realize that we have this incredible gift to create our own lives, the sooner we can bloom better and brighter with every season.
Wow, is that powerful? So that's kind of right in there with words of wisdom. So someone comes up to you, you meet them, and they say, "Oh, I would love to do what you do," and you've done several facets of your life very well. So, what would you say to them? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I'd say, gosh, if you're listening to this podcast, you haven't even heard a fraction of how well my life has gone. I'm talking going from broke 20 years ago to being very financially set now, to being, buying a piece of land that turned into an archaeology passion and almost not a side job, a real job. I'm actually getting hired to do work for other people now in other places, and it's fantastic. So read the blog if you even think you want to live the life I have. Read the blog, The Awakening the Merlin Within. The words of wisdom I'd have is that everything wonderful that's happened in my life has come about from listening to my heart and then being brave enough to act on that inner guidance. The guidance always doesn't always align with rational thought, like taking a huge bank loan to buy 100 acres of land for no good reason, only to find out a few years later that it contains multiple ancient ceremonial sites. But those are the kind of things that happen. I often compare my life to that of Kevin Costner in the film Field of Dreams. And it's not always big things that happen. Sometimes it's as small as taking a turn down a road I normally wouldn't go when I'm driving, or striking up a conversation with a total stranger. So I'd advise anyone with even a hint of spiritual sense to do the same. There's a film that I love called Finding Joe. Really, anybody who's listening to this, just look up on IMDb Finding Joe and give it a watch. It is fantastic. And it's about the life and work of Joseph Campbell. And if you watch it, you'll understand everything that I'm talking about. The trick for me, or the trick, what I would suggest to everyone is to see the golden thread that's already weaving its way through the tapestry of your life. Just follow that thread wherever it leads you, because it begs you to do it. Not just for yourself, but for the world that we're all a part of. And I actually put down a little quote that I love by the poet Khalil Gibran, one of my favorite authors. Mm-hmm. Khalil says, "In the depths of your hopes and desires lies your silent knowledge of the beyond. And like seeds dreaming beneath the snow, your heart dreams of spring. Trust those dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity." Follow your heart. Love it.
Again, amazing words. So, what is the best thing about what you have in your life, what you're doing in your life, and what you have in your life? I don't know if you can narrow it down, but can you?
I can honestly say that my partner, Carla, is really the best thing. We met, and for those that don't know us, Carla and I are 33 years apart. I just turned 65. She just turned 31. Well, she'll be 32 soon. Gosh, next year she'll be half my age. How about that? But but she is absolutely the best thing that's ever happened. We came to meet when I was at the post office when she was very young. We reconnected when she was in college. And having a partner that I can work with, oddly enough, it's the partners that have held me back in the past. I was married when I first got into Reiki and massage, and my wife thought it was just trying to get close with women naked, and it's absolutely nothing of the sort. but I had to get divorced in order to pursue my passions. And other partners were similar with Carla. Everything is open. Like we have this beautiful, beautiful communication between us. We can talk about anything. And I've never had someone that I can work with back and forth. You know, I help her grow. She helps me grow. So I'd say that's absolutely number one total for my life.
Mm-hmm.
The storage business is great, provides plenty of income to do what I need to do. The astronomy work, the Council Rocks is fantastic. I'm meeting so many wonderful people like yourself. And I have a great time with that. Massage Reiki is still good. There's so many things, but I'd say Carla is number one.
That's awesome. So what is next for Dave?
For Dave, well, in all the wonderful things that I love to do, and there are so many, even as simple as going out to feed deer in the morning. I actually missed it in getting myself ready for the podcast here. All 6 of them came by, and Carla went out to feed them.
Sorry, you missed your deer.
I did, and the one little buck, he was just born last May, so I've seen him since he was like a little baby. His mom brought him around, and we would hand feed his mom. But he gets close now. I'll be hand feeding him soon, I hope. But what I find is that I've been spending a lot of my personal time and energy on the storage business, and the storage business is great. So that's not a bad thing. I don't have to spend a whole lot of time. We're talking like 5 or 6 hours a week. Well, maybe more than that, maybe 10, but it's still not bad at all for the amount of income that business brings.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a feeling that it's almost nearly time to let go of that business and to move beyond it. So I'm starting to lay foundations for making a couple of improvements there, a couple of last minute improvements, and putting it up for sale within a few years. I get offers, I bet you 2 or 3 times a week, of people wanting to buy the business for a significant sum of money. I want to build that up so it's even more significant. And then in a few years, I'll sell it. We talked a little bit about stock trading. I've been weirdly led to that recently. I have a feeling that's going to replace the storage income, and I won't have nearly the amount of responsibilities. So within these next few years, I hope to spend more quiet time, but move away from the storage business and the responsibilities there, and spend more quiet time with Carla and with myself. Start bonding again with nature the way I did back in the mid-90s. Like I would sit and meditate and just feel the trees, feel the leaves. I have a great thing with leaves and plants. I can actually see mist around them. It's wonderful. But I feel like I need to return to those kind of roots, and so that I can find out what's next on my path, because something's coming up. I hope to write a book or 2. Carla's really on me about that. And I also hope to devote more time to that important archaeology work at Council Rocks and at other sites where my developing archaeoastronomy skills are wanted and needed. I've actually been asked how much would I charge to travel overseas to work on other sites. But I think I'm going to need the time to do that.
Oh my word, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's it. For me, it's pare down the business, move away from it, and start exploring more of my heart.
Wow. So as our time comes to a close, I just feel like it's almost stay tuned of what's next, because you have so much going on and you're such a positive person. It's been a wonderful time chatting with you. So I guess it is time for us to say goodbye. And again, I want to thank you, Dave, for being here. And I'm just going to say, as we close, this is the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. I'm Laura Womack, your host, saying bye for now. Bye, Dave. I really have enjoyed our chat together today.
And so have I. Thank you very much, Laura.
Bye-bye now.